All right, if you guys have not seen this yet, Uncle Todd has gone and he has practiced with Brian Shaw very recently. You can watch the full video on Brian Shaw's channel, so I would definitely recommend that you go and do that. But I really did not expect this collaboration to happen, so I was super excited when I saw it pop up. And there's just one little clip. There's a full video. You should watch all of it. Super entertaining, very interesting what Todd is teaching Brian. But there's one little clip that I love that Todd was showing him, and it's the one that I wanted to focus on in this video. And it's this sweeping top roll that Brian is doing. So first, Brian does kind of a little bit more of a traditional top roll with a little bit more side pressure, kind of trying to control every aspect of this top roll. You can see that Brian has a very, very deep grip, which really probably that just has more to do with his hand size. One of the potential limitations of having a hand this big is it's almost like you're always setting up to try to hook your opponent with that meaty part of your pinky pad sort of pushed past. It's not necessarily that Brian is trying to get a deep grip. It's just that he will get one guaranteed because his hand is so thick. So it can potentially make it harder to top roll in some ways, but easier to top roll in other ways. Anyway, Brian does this kind of more sideways driven top roll. And you can see that he kind of drops his hand height right about there. Initially, he sort of goes up, but then as he begins to swing his body around, he ends up more in the side pressure lane, and he kind of falls right into Uncle Todd's hook there. He almost, in a little bit of a way, he almost hooks himself because of the angle that he's pulling out, which is sideways. And as you guys will see, ever so slightly down. It looks to me like his hand height right here, if you move a few frames, it looks to me like his hand height actually drops slightly. And you can see that gap right here against Uncle Todd's wrist. He kind of hits into that wrist bone. And so then Uncle Todd is kind of telling him, this is probably not the lane that you want to use if you're trying to top roll someone who's trying to hook you. We see Uncle Todd with this lower grip. He's pushing past. He's trying to get around Brian and hook him outside of the straps. And of course, Todd normally doesn't hook people outside of the straps. Normally, we'll see him slip, go to his straps, do his patented Todd roll. But Todd is still very, very strong when it comes to hooking people out of the straps. He may not be able to do that at an elite level or like a top 5 level at the world where he normally competes at nowadays. But if he pulls someone who's a little bit lower, maybe top 15, top 20, Todd still has a very good chance of hooking that person outside of straps. So just because we normally see Todd pulling with his wrist broke back, that doesn't mean he doesn't have a super, super strong wrist. He has a super strong cup. So Todd is trying to prevent this from happening. He's trying to prevent Brian from getting outside under the fingertips. And he tells Brian that this is basically the wrong vector. This is the wrong angle to pull at. If you're trying to maximize everything into my fingertips, you're trying to get outside. You don't want to go sideways like this. And you can see Brian starting at the top right-hand corner of the pin pad, and he's going to be shooting sideways and back, which is good. But Todd says, hey, you can actually do what's called a sweeping top roll. And he shows him right here, and you'll see it, where Todd moves Brian's elbow for him. He says you can go outside. You can kind of push your wrist knuckle back or sort of toward your opponent's peg, hand peg, doing a lot of external shoulder rotation and sweeping outside. This movement right here. And as soon as Brian tries this, and this is really exciting to me, and you'll see now he's going to set up at the top left-hand corner of the pad so that he has room to sweep outside. He does it a little bit better on this next attempt. That's pretty good. They slip. And now they're going to do another attempt. And this one, I think this looks pretty nice. That really does look like an actual arm wrestler trying to prevent the hook from taking place. And you can see Todd isn't just giving this to him for free. He's actually sliding like you would if you're trying to set a hook. He's crashing down on Brian Shaw's pronator. But he actually is not quite able to get this. Now, of course, he's not trying 100% here. This is just practice. But the point of all this is that Todd is pretty good at this move. He doesn't get a lot of credit for it just because he's pulling top 5 guys in the world who are taking his wrist, but his wrist flexion is very strong, and he's very good at setting the hook. But Brian is giving him quite a bit of trouble here when he switches to this outside sweeping move. So again, I understand that this is practice. I'm not trying to make any kind of implications here as what would happen in a match. Just that in the practice itself, Brian is looking a lot better when he switches to this elbow on the top left inside corner of the pad, and then he sweeps out, and you can see his entire body is pronating. Brian is not so much doing isolated pronation through his wrist joint or through his elbow and wrist, but you can see his entire body. He sets up with more kind of shoulder commitment, and then he gives it away on purpose. In other words, he's pronating with his entire upper body instead of, and really even his lower body. His entire body is causing pronation to take place in the hand. So he's locking and then spinning with his whole body instead of doing a weaker isolated pronation that's only through the arm. So let me know what you guys think about this, but I think this one right here, this top roll right here from Brian, that actually looks pretty good, I think. Todd gives him a little pat on the back there. I think he's going to do one more that looks really good. Yeah, again, he's gaining height. This time he sets up even more forward. And we'll see him sweep out. And Todd really, at this point, Todd comes off the pad entirely. But that looks pretty good from Brian. If he's trying to block someone from hooking him, get over the top, especially with on someone with a shorter arm, I think that looks really good. That sweeping top roll, and I think that is potentially a move that could be really good for Brian in the future. So overall, though, I do love that he's getting all these people to come in and show him all kinds of different things. I do think that ideally, even if Brian, say he only uses this move right here, this kind of sweeping top roll, let's say that becomes his ace move, I think it's still really important as an arm wrestler to understand how all of the moves work and not just focus only on the move that you use. It's going to be a lot more effective when you're going up against people who use, let's say, a hook. If your move is a top roll and you're going up against a hooker, if you're also really good at hooking yourself, you're going to have a much better chance at defeating that hook puller. Same thing if you're going up against a presser and you also have a press yourself, because you understand how that move works, you're going to have a much better chance against that particular opponent. So I love that Brian is not just learning a few things, but he does seem to be learning everything. So I think that this will be awesome, even if this move, like I said, does develop into his ace move, which I think there's a pretty good chance of. Maybe a high hook, something similar to this, something posting. But I love that he's doing all this stuff, and I think he is really starting to look pretty clean on the table, especially compared to right before the Eddie Hall match. I think he looks so much better. Just the fluidity of his movement, I think, is looking really good. So let me know what you guys think about this. Thank you so much for watching. Make sure to go subscribe to Brian Shaw and Uncle Todd. I'll talk to you guys later.